All right, calling to order the March 5th meeting of the Police Community Advisory Board. Can we start with roll call? I have to find my list. So Vice Chair Buchanan.
Here.
Member Powers.
Present.
I am present. Member Malloy.
Present.
Student Rep Nero. Is he not on anymore? Okay. And ex officio Wigginstein said he cannot come.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So can we get an approval, a motion to approve the minutes from October 2nd? I think we've looked at them a couple of times.
I make that motion.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Yep.
Aye.
All right, now it's time for public comment. I don't see any members of the public, so I'm assuming we're going to move right through that. Yep,
Yeah, I don't believe we have any.
all right. All right, so the first item for discussion is our 2025 meeting calendar. We've missed a couple of meetings, but we had talked about going to every other month. Do we want to talk about that?
Chief, do you have a preference?
I think that's the appropriate thing, would be doing every other month. You know, it's just sort of the third time's the charm on this meeting, but the good thing is we're back to an odd month. So really, if we just stick with the odd months, then it would be, May would be the next one. So,
That works for me.
So do we need a motion for that? If we're just sticking to what we had already? Okay, just go ahead and move it? Yeah, okay. So that means our next meeting will be May, what is that?
7?
May 7th? Okay. Writing that down. Okay. And that won't conflict with the August meeting then, because we'll meet in July instead. right? Oh. Oh, do you want to fix that?
Nope, it's the second. Yeah, so we're looking at May 7th, July 2nd, September 3rd, November 5th.
November 5th, I think. Yeah. I'm still pulling my calendar up. So I can do this over, but I want to show you if I can. Because I forgot to touch it, but I can get it. Okay, Chief Slowick, I think is going to give us a presentation on the Police Department strategic plan for 2025.
Yeah, so I will just give you an overview on where we're at. We actually completed our strategic plan for 25. It's actually a 5-year strategic plan. It's 2025 through 2029. The plan was put in place with the help of staff. The community survey that we conducted all of last year, getting some feedback on community engagements that we had, and then looking at the staffing we currently have, where we're trying to head to on future needs in the community, and so we're really excited about that. I do want to give a special thank you to Captain Barton. He was instrumental in putting that together, and that was his first really big project when he got here, and did a great job. The other part of that strategic plan, we actually updated our mission statement, and we updated our department values. So that's a great thing. I think the last time we did this was maybe 7 years ago, and so feel like everybody is really excited about where that's headed to. And I included the mission statement actually on my letter to you in the community survey. It's on the back of that, and we'll get to that in a second. I will have, at our next meeting, I'll have that, our strategic plan printed out. We don't have it printed out yet, so once that's printed out, I'll provide that to you guys as well. We'll also post that on our city website. So we did go over all of the actionable items for 2025 with our staff. We had a all-staff meeting, I think it was the 2nd of January, and presented that to the entire staff. That is one, wanting to make sure that our staff understands where we headed as a department. 2, it's an accreditation requirement that we review our strategic plan annually. And so we sort of killed 2 birds with 1 stone there. But so pretty excited. And then we are, there's a lot of actionable items that we're already making progress on this year. So when we have that printed out, we'll be able to go over where those things are at. Okay. Any questions?
Excuse me, just one. So the entire staff and all the officers were all involved in designing the values and the mission based on.
Yeah, so what we did was we held 4 different department meetings. We invited staff to come in. If they were on their off time, we paid them overtime. Some people decided to participate, some decided not to participate, some came on their off time, some did it on their work time. But we tried to facilitate that as much as possible, and through those conversations, we trimmed down from 5 values that we had within the department. We retained 2 of those values, and we moved forward with adding a 3rd. So for our, additionally with our mission statement, we took the mission of dedicated to community safety and service, and then we actually wrote a mission statement on how does that get there? How do we get there? So our new mission statement reads, the Oak Harbor Police Department is dedicated to community safety through proactive law enforcement and community engagement. We strive to uphold the values of respect, integrity, and excellence while protecting the lives and property of all those who live, work, and visit our community. So one of the challenges that we had previously, we did have a vision statement. However, just having a previous mission statement, which was dedicated to community safety and service, didn't necessarily tell us how are we applying that and what do we do every day? What does that look like? How does that tie in with our values? And then what should the community expect from us? And we wanted to make sure we consolidated that into something that the officers could understand and something that the community could understand of where we headed to. Additionally, we retained the values of respect and integrity from our old values. And then we added the value of excellence because we felt like the old values could be combined into something of what are we trying to strive for. And at the end of the day, the group said, hey, we're striving for excellence in our what we value out of our service to the community. So, and those relationships and all those other things. So pretty excited about that. I think it's a good, as we do some refreshment within the police department, I think it's a great opportunity for looking at, where are we headed to and how are we going to get there. We have a lot of turnover in staff. We've hired 10 people last year. We're hiring 7 more this year, and we're not that big of a department, so it's pretty neat.
I love this mission statement. I think it's descriptive and it is succinct, and I think it's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, ChatGPT did great. No, just joking. It's actually very collaborative on how we put that together, and it was fun through that whole process because it really challenged some of our junior people to really speak up and talk about what do they value, but then also some of our senior people to articulate, hey, why is it that we're trying to hold on to some of our roots and heritage, and where are we headed to, but how are we going to get there? And that's the, that sort of driver, the pathway to get there was the piece that we felt like was really missing. So excited about this. So, okay, any other questions about the strategic plan? Okay. So we'll just move on to the community survey. I know that at one of the previous meetings, I brought in the survey, and it's really hard to, it was a lot of graphs and different things, and the font was challenging. I'm happy to send that to you electronically once I get it sent to me electronically. The initial printout was like 6 font. It was super small, so I at least have it in like 10 font so I can almost read it. But what I did here was I took the survey results, I wrote them down, and then documented, what were the majority of the responses and how people, how the community felt. I think it's important to recognize a couple things with this. One is the survey was open for a 6-month period from July through December. During that time, we only had 110 responses. It's very low. However, we've had other surveys that have happened in the city of Oak Harbor with also very low responses. So we recognize that surveys probably aren't the best way to get to reach out to everybody. Through that, I was very, we tried several different methods on how to communicate with people. We had the form online and a paper form at both City Hall and the police department. We had the survey as one of the notices on the city's webpage. We actually put it up in Facebook and a few other social media posts as well. We actually paid for a city mailer, so if you lived within the city limits and you received your water bill, we actually paid for it to be part of that mailer, and we did a full sheet page so you really couldn't miss it, as just another piece of trying to get that outreach there. We actually had several special events during that period of July through December. So 4th of July was one of the events that we had the QR codes posted. We had people staffed at the city's tent. We were talking to people about it. Hydro for Heroes was another event. We had National Night Out. So we actually had some pretty good opportunities there to communicate with people and hand out the public safety survey QR code and ask people to fill it out or give a form. We handed out several forms, but didn't get them back. So that was the other challenging thing. And then we communicated that through, this group here, and I appreciate all the work that you guys did. I know that Chairperson Paul went and, did a lot of door knocking and all of those things as well. And then we communicate that with City Council. So I felt like we made a good effort in trying to get that out there. We're not going to abandon the survey. I think it's important to have that as one of the mechanisms on getting some feedback. We will trim the survey down so it's an easier piece as we redo our website, and probably just keep that open throughout the year, and then we'll pull it annually to just gather some data and use that as a collection point. I know one of the items that I am interested in is doing some public satisfaction surveys with our victims and complainants and incidents. So that's something that we'll be looking at as well, and just ways that we are communicating with the public and getting some feedback on our performance. So, and then I'll just add one of our goals this year was to actually get our, I would say professional development, what am I thinking of? Professional standards software purchased and then up and running. We actually have purchased it, and we have it up and running. We also paid for a public portal to go on our website. So as we refresh our website this year, that'll be another piece where somebody can just go on our page and either submit accommodation, a complaint, whatever they would want to do through that public portal, and allow us to get some feedback as well. So pretty good. Questions?
Were you surprised by anything that you saw in the survey results?
So not really. I think that a lot of the information that was returned is probably a lot of the conversations that have been had in the community over the last year, specifically over the last like 6 months or so, 6 to 9 months. So of the participants, 66% of those lived within the city limits. The remainder, 34%, lived on Whidbey Island. So that's nice to have that information. Wasn't surprised to see that the community felt that 56% of the community felt that we did a good job with community policing. We went from with having 29 commissioned officers last year, we got down to 19 commissioned officers. So at some point all we could do was respond to patrol calls. And really we have a trend over the last several years where our discretionary time, which is the time that you're not actively responding to patrol calls or writing reports in response to patrol calls, that discretionary time is when you typically go out and do traffic stops, community contacts, field interviews, walk the park, go shoot hoops with somebody or, whatever, drive around, find graffiti, do all the community engagement things that we would normally do. Because we've been low in staffing and the response to calls have been taking longer, and a lot of that's through legislative changes or the tactics in responding to mental health crises. We just haven't had that opportunity. So I can understand how that has declined. I would have liked to see it higher, but I think that we have I think that the other results in here show that we have respect and interact with the community well. We just need to do better in being proactive and in having those engagement opportunities. So, and that could be, better presence on social media. We really don't have a good presence on social media, and that's because we don't have a person dedicated to being able to do that. That's a collateral assignment, and everybody is collateral assignment out, right? Everyone's got other things to do, so.
Can you remind us what your staffing numbers are now?
What's that?
Can you remind us what your staffing numbers are now?
Yeah, so we're authorized up to 34 staff. We're currently, we have 7 positions that are available. 2 of those positions will be lieutenant positions, so they're not line officer. 5 of those positions are line officer positions that we're actively trying to hire. We have 1 person in our background process right now. We have a list of candidates who we need to interview still. And we have 1 person in the police academy and 1 person in field training. So we're actually in a decent spot. We're not in any type of crisis spot. All our patrol squads have 4 officers or sergeant and 3 other officers on the squad. We are going to plus those up to 1 more person in each squad to alleviate some of the overtime that we've been having. And providing a little more opportunities for community engagement as well. And then we'll be adding eventually, as we get all our staffing, eventually we'll be adding a drug detective as well to that. So, but the great news is we're at a place where we just recently did a supervisor promotion, a sergeant promotion. We moved a sergeant to our community response team. And this is the first week when he's supposed to start, except for he's on vacation, so he'll start next week. And that community response team is the one that's going to be handling these community concerns. And if you go under safety, the top 5 safety concerns that were identified in the survey, the number 1 was the homeless problem at 83%. Next was drug abuse, burglaries and thefts, and then traffic issues. So the great part is that community response team, a lot of those things are in that wheelhouse for that team. Additionally, they'll be tasked out to do some other engagement opportunities. But in that team will also be eventually a dedicated traffic person, which we've been missing for probably 10 years. So, what's that? You don't want to get pulled over, ever? Oh. Did they say hi? Okay. So I think the next thing really to look at is under the safety, there was a category of, how safe did somebody feel? And over the last 12 months, people said that that safety was reasonably safe. About 1/3 of the people said that they felt safe, that it was about the same. And then it decreased as the safety felt like it decreased as well. So if you lump those staying the same and the amount decreasing, you're in that 70% range. So there is a community concern on the perception of crime occurring and then how people are feeling. However, I did add our annual statistics for last year and then 2023. And we have gone up a little bit in calls for service, a little bit less than 200 for us. However, our misdemeanor arrests were lower than 2023. Our felony arrests were higher. But we had some other engagement opportunities that we have. Overall, our crime hasn't drastically escalated for people to have a dramatic increase in feeling. The change that has happened, though, is we've got Spin Cafe that's moved downtown. It's highly visible. That perception that people are having, and we've had this conversation many times through different community events and meetings, is real, and people are feeling that. And there needs to be some, things needed to be worked through on how do we resolve that, or we just accept and tolerate where we're at. The challenge is that, the Spin has a right to be where they're at. They have a lease, and that board has to decide if they're willing to move or not. So I know that the mayor has formed a task force, which we'll get to and talk about a little bit as well. And we've had meetings with the Spin board as well about opportunities there. So. Any questions so far?
So I have a question about the metrics.
Yeah.
So really, my first question was if people's perceptions are in line with reality, and it sounds like really not so much, right?
No, yeah.
But what happened with domestic violence here?
Yeah,
Is
so
it-
we added that category. That wasn't a category that was tracked previously. So it was tracked under the domestic violence, but what we weren't gathering were also assaults.
I
So
see.
what we were gathering was the domestic violence incidents, but we weren't gathering the simple assault incidents. And so there was a way that we could gather those things and put them together and collect that data, so.
Okay, so it's not really, it looks like it's a big jump,
No,
but it's not
it's
really.
two different
Okay.
categories. However, breaking them out, so one of the challenges we have is our records management software, and that's where all of our data goes into, and being able to pull the analytics out of that is extremely painful. Meg does an amazing job in being able to figure that out. Unfortunately, we have to use a third-party software often to try to get that data, and we don't have an analyst that is capable of like doing the programming for it. Additionally, the third-party software is actually not recommended to be used with our records management system because it can provide some security breaches, and so it's challenging. So we're able to pull it through a different report, and that's how we get that combination of assault and DVs. But we're looking, one of the conversations we're talking about regionally, and that's Island and Skagit County law enforcement agencies, is trying to find some other records management software that has analytics built in. We can pull the data without having extra staffing, and then it's usable data that we can share with the community, share with our officers, identify specific zones or neighborhoods, those type of things, and really look at what the impact is on the type of crime they're having. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So as you continue in the survey, again, under safety, really it says activities in Oak Harbor. Have you changed your activities in Oak Harbor due to crime? 53% said yes. They did change their activities. The procedural justice questions, I thought they were all favorable with those percentages. The performance question, we were low as a department in addressing how people feel like their real concerns, that like their real concerns are being responded to. However, I will say that most people said that they never had contact with us in the last year. So I think that also goes back to the perception issue of crime is is escalating. They want law enforcement to handle the crime, and really what they're seeing is a homeless crisis, some addiction, some addiction issues that aren't criminal. They're social, they're community social problems that we're a piece of trying to help solve. However, we're just one piece of it, and it's very difficult for us. So, and I think the other part is that we have very limited resources on this island, and there's been talks about having a stabilization center that is involuntary stabilization center, all of those type of things. Those are all great things that money probably can be gathered, but and a building could probably be built, but Linwood Police Department, or the city of Linwood, just built a $60 million police department jail that has a 32 bed mental health hospital wing to it. They can't get a provider to run the mental health piece. So if they can't do it and they're actually in the city where there are providers, how is it that we get those services here? It's just a challenging piece that will have to be addressed. We're very rural compared to that jurisdiction that's fairly close to us. So thankfully, we do have a provider that is building more beds than Cedar Woolley. That is a regional facility that has voluntary, involuntary addiction beds, those type of things. That will be available to us, but I still think that's about a year and a half out from being available. So,
Is there no discussion of a stabilization unit at Itua then with that expansion?
So Itua, so the challenge with Itua is it's a voluntary facility. It'll always be a voluntary facility. Currently has 10 beds. They're adding 5 more beds because at least that's the understanding of the limitation. The real problem is that's the limitation on the space that they occupy, because the county has just built 100 or 89 housing units around Itua, and there's no more space for it to grow. There's space to add a wing of 5 beds, and that's it. That provider is only looking at voluntary services on that way that is, and right now they don't do any mental health. They can't hold a mental health psychologist. I don't know if it's staffing or pay or whatever those things are, but we often are notified, hey, we're only taking addiction customers right now. There's no mental health customers, and so that's very limiting for us. Woodby Health is a emergency facility. I wouldn't even call it whatever else we want to call it, but it's a place where you can go to. However, they aren't required to hold anybody, and often their doctors process the people out before we can even return back to Oak Harbor. So, and they don't have security all the time. They're very limited. It's a very rural location. It's a triage. I guess it's a triage center. That's what I would call Woodby Health. They triage you, they stabilize you, they put you on an ambulance to drive you to Skagit or a helicopter to drive you to Seattle. So, yeah. All right, as we continue on with the fun, Waka Waka. No. Okay. So just getting down into performance stuff. Let's see. I think it's middle of the road favorable on our performance. I think that we could definitely do better. I think a lot of that is the perceptions that people have, but I think then it's really just building those relationships and having officers that are out having non-priority contacts with people is important. And then as we continue further down, this is where it gets into 72% of the people had no contact or didn't call 911 in the last 12 months. And really, when you add the 72 and if you called 1 or 2 times, you're talking 97% of the people that called said, hey, I maybe called, 25 said I called once or twice, and then there was nothing. So it's really challenging where you get, you're not getting a lot of that from your actual contacts with law enforcement. But again, I think it's a good tool. I think we'll continue to use this tool. I I think that as we're doing different budgeting model with our finances, we're pulling some statistical data from that. So I think this is just one element of that piece that we're going to use for some analytics.
So Chief Slick, thank you for doing this,
Yeah.
especially, since, and this is just my read, is what people are unhappy about is Spin Cafe, right? And
It's my interpretation of it.
that would be my interpretation
Yeah.
of it as well. And you've been very active in trying to address that issue,
Yeah.
maybe disproportionately to what the police department's responsibility ought to be for that particular issue. So I just want
Certainly.
to say thank you personally
No,
for working
thank
on
you.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's our community, and I think that, we all have to try to figure this out together, so, yeah. Okay, any other questions about the survey? Okay. My plan is to, once Maggie sends that to me, if you'd like the survey in its raw form, I can email that out to you. I'm happy to provide that, just if it's a yes, thumbs up, sure. I will send that out to you, or I'll have Meg send that out. And then this information will be included in our annual report as well. So we'll have a little more, I think what I'll probably just put some more explanations of how I feel some of this is interpreted, so. Okay? All right, next we're moving to the Pathways to Stability Task Force. I'm excited that, the mayor started this task force. This is after the request of Chair Paul in her meeting with him, and this is after this group went and toured the First Step Center over in Burlington. And what we were seeing is what possible options are for our community, knowing that we don't have this transitory or transitionary housing that's needed. And so we've had one meeting as a group. I think it was a good sort of just get to know you meeting. What is this group all about, and how we're sort of headed in the right direction. I believe the next meeting is next month. I'll have to verify that, but I believe it's when? April 4th, okay. So the next meeting for the stability, again, the Stability Task Force is April, okay, perfect. So that's next month. We did get a little setback in that with this task force is I did apply for a grant. Oh, actually, sorry, bad information. We're still waiting on finding out about that grant. I was told that we didn't get it, and then it was a different grant. So we're still waiting. We did apply for a grant for this group. Part of that grant is to do a feasibility study on what type of services that could our community support and where should it be located at. There are people from SPIN, the director from SPIN and a board member from SPIN are on that group. Chair Paul is on that group. We have representation from Island County Commissioners have been invited, Island County Human Services, and there's some community involvement as well. So I'm excited for that. And I think there's some opportunities. I think the one challenge that we've had over the last several years is that the city of Oak Harbor has taken a position of not really wanting to be a player in where services are going to be located at, not really having an influence on trying to say what kind of services we want. What we've seen with that stance is that Island County is responsible in our jurisdiction for providing those services. They don't run a shelter. They don't run night shelter or day shelter. But what they do is they put money towards nonprofits, and then they check the box saying, hey, that's our shelter. And that's fine. And other jurisdictions do that same thing. The challenge with that is if we don't have influence or we're not engaged with those groups, we have the problem where we're currently in now, where a shelter opens up right in our high traffic area of town. So, so I think that this is going to be it's a longer road than I think some people want. I think a lot of people want like instant relief and changes. At a recent meeting with Spin Board, they are open to installing a fence around their property, so that's a very big positive thing, I think. So, there is some movement there on decisions where they were very hard no a short while ago. They're now open to some changes, which I think are positive. Yep. Any questions? Okay. And then I think we just are interested in what are you guys interested in? I guess you have your member comment, and then I guess what are you interested in on some future agenda? Oh, I will add really quick, we will be doing a Citizen Academy this year. We are shortening the Citizen Academy down to 6 weeks from the 10 weeks that it previously was. It'll probably be in the fall. We just have a lot of projects that are up in the air right now, and we just need to settle some of those projects before we move on to doing this one. But it'll probably be the fall, September, October timeframe. So, okay.
That was my only question, was when Citizens Academy was going to be.
I actually have a question. Last year, the CAB board attended an event called Community Cares. It was May 18th. It is May 18th again this year. Last year, it was, I forgot which officer went with me. He's the prison guard in Coopville. Brian, yeah. And we sat there handing out pins and talking to the community, but I was curious if maybe us as a board could do it again this year, not just one or two, but like all of us, because then we could really get out there. It's usually a Saturday.
Usually Saturday.
Yeah. I don't know. Let me look. I'm sure it is, because that's when they put the flyer out. Yes, it is.
Which one?
Oh, wait, no, it's a Sunday. Okay, let me double check that. It's either the 17th or the 18th, but it is that weekend. I think it's important that we go. A lot of Oak Harbor community goes. I think it's great to put CAB out there and let people know that we do care and we want to hear. Oh, sorry.
So I think it's a great idea to at least invite the CAB, and I'm saying invite the CAB because I'm not convinced I can go. I've got to look at my calendar, but I think our participation would be great.
Yeah.
Are we? Yeah.
All right, we'll find out what date it is and let everybody know. We'll work on some staffing and see if we can make an officer available as well.
If it really is May 18th, that's the
I don't think-
45th anniversary of the eruption of Mount St. Helens.
It's
Just
also
saying.
the Coast Guard's birthday, but I'm just saying. I think it's the Saturday. I don't think it's on a Sunday. But
Yeah, normally, 2 years in a row they had it on that Saturday.
yeah, yeah.
So I just want to say that I enjoyed the visit yesterday to the proposed police training site. I
Yep.
thought that was really interesting, and I'm wondering what the obstacles are to funding that or where
Sure.
that stands.
Yeah, so the city is under contract with purchasing two parcels of land off of Northeast 21st Court. One has an established building on it. Formerly, it was Pacific Indoor Tactical or Anchor Point. That is a gun range, is what both of those were. The police department is interested in that becoming a regional public safety training facility. So when we talk about what that could be is, yes, there's a gun range, so that is actually a very hot commodity item right there. However, we do all of this other training where we need safe training spaces that we don't have in Island or Skagit County. And when we're talking about safe training spaces for law enforcement, that means that we don't have lethal weapons on us. We've gone down into training firearms or training weapons, or we're in a position where our situational awareness probably isn't the best because we're in a training environment and we're focused on what our training is. So for us, that would be meaning you can secure the facility. It's not open to the public. It has the training space and also proper equipment to provide realistic scenario-based training that we often do. We have mandated training requirements by the state, and often those are unfunded. So while the state says you have to hit a minimum of 24 hours of training, they also add on all of these other things that you have to do annually with firearms. Firearms proficiency isn't just going to the range one time a year and now you're proficient. It's continued repetition with a firearm or multiple firearms, transitioning of different firearms from a lethal encounter to a de-escalated non-lethal encounter where maybe you need to remove the firearms, holster them, go hands-on with somebody to save somebody's life, provide first aid, whatever those might be. And so we feel like this facility actually checks all those boxes. We have support from all of the law enforcement chiefs in Island and Skagit and San Juan counties for the facility. We've had several tours of the facility. Yesterday was one of the recent tours. And if you haven't been out there yet, I will extend an offer the next time we go out to do get access to the facility. But we believe that we can host regional reoccurring training here, that we can set up training that's a paid training, so it's not always free training that we go to. Often we pay to go to classes, and we can set that training up, recoup some of the money to put into maintenance of the building and those type of things. Get people to drive in from out of town, stay at our hotels, all of that. So it's all great. City Council's been very supportive of it. Which is why we have them under contract. So it's the building, and then there's a vacant piece of land next to it. The vacant piece of land could be a new police department, could be a plethora of different things for the city hall, or for the city. Police department's my vote. But there's a lot of opportunities there because it all butts up against our city public works property. So it's pretty cool how that could be one big campus. The obstacle right now is the cost is $2.75 million for the building and the land. A similar building is being built by the Lacey Police Department right now, and it's 1,000 square feet more, but 7 fewer gun firing lanes, and it's $10 million to build that project, and it's going to be finished next year. So we know what the now cost is for the project, and we've been able to secure it for a little bit less than a third of the cost, which is pretty awesome. So we're right now trying to gather the funds. So we've done a funds request with our legislatures, and we'll see how that goes. We're in talks with our regional partners and some opioid money, some drug task force money, those type of things. But at the end of the day, if all of those, we're applying for a grant from Swinomish Tribe. They've got a community safety grant that talks about public safety. So we're applying for a grant there. But if nothing ever pans out, at the end of the day, it could come up to where the council has to fund it if they choose to, and how they might do that. So that's been discussed with the council, and they understand that could be one of the outcomes. We're hoping it's not. We're hoping we can fund at least part of it through other means. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if anybody's got $2.75 million lying around, River, point us in the right direction. If we're looking for the River Powers Police Training Facility, I mean, sponsored by Edward Jones.
I would love that so much.
So yeah, so I mean that's the obstacle right now. We're in a 6-month feasibility study. We're bringing in a couple people to survey different parts of the facility. One is specifically for the gun range piece. And they're going to look at all the OSHA requirements, the changeover in air, because lead contamination is a real thing, and those health hazards. And we want to make sure that it is what we believe it is, which is the state-of-the-art ventilation system that we believe it is. So we're excited for that.
Any other comments?
Not for me.
Future agenda items? No? No? Motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I will second that.
We're adjourned.